Steph Curry's Olympic debut has been subpar, to say the least. And why the hell is Mike Miller making a cameo on Locked On Warriors?
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So much to get to in so little time. Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen of every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the summer winds down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That is right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have a lot on today's show. Steph Curry has struggled mightily in the Olympics for Team USA. We're diving into that. Mike Miller makes a cameo saying that Lowry Markkanen is going to be a Golden State Warrior. Where in the heck did this come from? Is there room for Gary Payton II on this roster? We're breaking it down player by player. Where does he fit into this team? Will he be on this team? And Moses Moody. Kylen loves some Moses Moody. I love some Moses Moody. Steve Kerr, does he love some Moses Moody in 2024, 2025? We shall see. Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game and KPIX in San Francisco, covered the Warriors championship run in 2022. Kylen Mills did the same season for Cron 4 and now covers the team for NBC Sports Bay Area. Kylen, how are you? It was great seeing you on the pickleball court today. Just pure domination.
Dude, pickleball is my new obsession. For any folks who are like looking for a random sport to play as you get older that like won't kill the joints, won't kill the knees. At least I don't think it will. Comparatively, like I've got back issues. I can't run long distance like I used to. Definitely not run on pavement. Like pickleball is such a great alternative. I just picked it up and I'm officially already obsessed. Chuck, you're not so bad yourself. So we'll have to keep it up and keep playing the game. And I'll tell you what else. This Olympics is giving me life right now. In the heart of summer, in the heat of summer, when there's not a whole lot going on outside of baseball. And if you're a Bay Area baseball fan, not much to cheer about between the A's and Giants. This has given us something to be interested in. I loved watching both the men's basketball team and the women's soccer team dominating 3-0 in group play in their Olympic. I don't know. They're searching for gold. Their Olympic.
Their quest. Their voyage.
Yes, their Olympic quest. Thank you.
Yes.
So those are two of my favorites. And then obviously gymnastics is so much fun to watch. But anyways, yeah, it's getting me through what's a slow time in the off season. That's for sure.
Is pickleball a sport yet in the Olympics? Is that something that we can be training towards? Doubles pickleball? From the Bay Area, from Pacifica, California, it's Chuck and Kylen.
I don't think it is yet, but I bet you it will be at some point. And the great thing is, like in doubles, you don't have to cover a ton of ground. So like you don't have to be Serena Williams level fit to be good at pickleball. And that's why it's so popular, is because people who aren't athletic aren't in great shape to play.
Need a little finesse. Steph Curry's had so much finesse throughout his career. Unfortunately, does not have the magic touch right now in the Olympic Games. Curry shot just 1 of 9 from the field in US's 103-86 win over South Sudan. That included 0 for 6 from 3. Keep in mind, this is the same guy who set an NBA record when he made a 3 in 268 consecutive NBA games that ended in December of 2023. Of course, his response was time to start a new streak. Not good so far in the Olympics. 3 of 13 in the 2 games. That is 23%. Include the last 2 tune-up games before against Germany and South Sudan. It's 7 of 29, 24%. Steve Kerr responds with, he just had a tough night. Steph is Steph. I've seen him have tough nights before, and he'll go out and get 40. FIBA's a little different. It's not the NBA. It's a 40-minute game. You're playing fewer minutes, getting fewer shots. There was that, and then there were the mean tweets. We saw a quote, the worst player on the court is Curry, but he gonna play because Steph Kerr is the head coach.
Wait, where
Another
did that
fan,
come from? Can you read
yeah,
who's tweeting this? That's funny.
I don't know who tweeted it, but he said Steph Kerr is the head coach. It's Steve, buddy. It's Steve. Another fan pointed out, why is he still playing despite the struggles on the floor? Someone said, Chef decided not to cook today. LOL. Can people stop overreacting to one game? I mean, it's Tatum one day, it's him the next, it's Embiid who doesn't play a second in today's game. Can we just let the Olympics unfold and enjoy greatness? Even if Steph Curry wasn't great. That's all I ask of the people this Olympic Games. Can we save the peanut gallery for the end of this thing?
I actually feel like Steph Curry wasn't getting as hard of a time as I thought he would get on Twitter. I feel like Jason Tatum took more of the heat because Tatum got the start after getting DMP'd last game against Serbia. That was a big talking point. People were losing their minds. He gets the start today, and then Tatum looked cold. And I saw more Tatum memes and different comments.
And Embiid, they were the scapegoats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Embiid too. And Embiid did not play well against Serbia. I think that Steve Kerr made the right move in starting Anthony Davis in this game too. But I will say that I think Steph Curry fairly got off fairly unscathed, but Steph Curry is a shooter. He has off nights. He's going to have hot nights. I don't read too much into it. For people to say Steph is cooked off of one Olympic game, I think is a stretch. He's done the same thing during the regular season. As you pointed out, going into the season, had this incredible 3-point shooting streak where he made a three in every single game. This past season in the NBA, Curry made at least 2 shots per game. In this game against South Sudan, he only made 1 for 9 from the floor, 0 for 6 from 3. So this is a total anomaly, a total outlier, not in line with any performance he had this last NBA season where he was the same age, the same skill level, the same fitness level. So to me, I'm not super worried. Curry is a player who can get hot, who can go cold, and in the right moments, he's been able to step up and shine. So I don't read into it as being Steph's cooked, Steph's done, Steph's this, Steph's that because of one bad game in the Olympics. There are also more games to come. So let's just see what happens. If he continues to be off, even if he never really finds his shot in the Olympics, I still don't know that I'm super worried. You also have to keep in mind that the international game is a different pace. It's a different style than what you see in the NBA, and that can disrupt his rhythm. There's also new teammates, just not necessarily a totally new system because it is Steve Kerr, but you're playing with totally different players. You're playing with a bunch of all-stars. You're playing with guys who are ball dominant.
More
yes, you're
physical
playing
game.
with higher quality players, but it still can once again just impact the rhythm, impact the shot selection. I don't think there was anything like wrong with Curry's game. He just couldn't hit shots that he normally hits. They were shots. It wasn't even like horrible shot selection. There were just shots that he didn't hit that he can hit other nights. I don't think you can completely jump off the deep end based on this. Basically what you were saying as well.
And I think that some players are just built for the Olympics more than others. Let's not forget that Carmelo Anthony's the greatest Olympian of all time. I mean, still holds the record. Like he just was Olympic Carmelo was a different level. And it's because he had a perfect blend of size, physicality, shooting touch, something that, Kevin Durant is showing right now. He's showing how valuable he is with his skill set. And maybe Steph Curry just doesn't really translate over to the Olympics. How would we know? We've never seen him in these Olympic Games before, but thus far it has not been good. Speaking of not good, I would imagine this.
I mean, the same thing though with other guys on the team. If I can add one point, was like, for example, Jason Tatum, who's getting all this heat, like according to Steve Kerr, didn't fit in with the rotation. One of the best players in the NBA. You can look at a ton of stats that pointed to that this past season. Won the championship. He was -4 overall in this game against South Sudan. Had 4 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, but just wasn't super efficient. So, I mean, you see that. These are all the best players in the NBA, the best players in the country, the best players in the world. And to your point, the Olympics and the style of play may not suit everyone. And the rotations, the teammates, like it just may not work for everyone. And I don't even necessarily think that's the case with Curry, but with a Joel Embiid, same kind of thing. One of the most dominant players in the NBA who I think can't really figure out how to score when the offense doesn't run through him. And so there are just little quirks and nuances to playing in the Olympics in the international game.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say that this article on Steph Curry, whoever the journalist is, and I'm not going to give him a shout out on the show or any slander, whatever you would call this, but dad joke of the year, dad article of the year, his title, has anyone seen Steph Curry's shot? The greatest shooter in NBA history has been looking all over for France for it, but it seems to be missing. Doesn't Curry know when you go overseas, you're supposed to attach air tags to your valuable possessions? Oh, slap your knees, everyone. Hope
Oh
you're here
my
until
gosh.
next week. Lowry Markkinen, Kylen, you haven't had your chance to chime in on the whole sweepstakes potentially ending, as the reports have come out that Lowry Markkinen is trending towards 100% signing after the August 6th date, potentially on August 7th, which would push it past the trade deadline and would force Lowry Markkinen to be traded at the earliest next offseason. So how does Mike Miller come into this equation? We're discussing that coming up on Locked On Warriors. First, let me tell you about our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and I will tell you what, as the summer winds down, we get fewer games. The sports, they're not sporting like I want them to, but it always lets you keep the sports going because you can bet on sumo wrestling. You open up the app, you dream up anything. I don't know if sumo wrestling is an Olympic sport, but pickleball, whatever is an Olympic sport, you dream it up and it's there on the FanDuel app. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That is right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. We all love free bets. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Kylen, I threw out 2 locks for you in the last couple of shows, baseball plays. This one, not a lock by any means. It's a little sprinkle, a little Salt Bay. Scotty Scheffler, plus 330 to win the Olympics. Look, this guy is trending towards one of the greatest golfers of all time. You can arrest the guy, and he's still going to come out there and shoot 7 under. Scotty Scheffler is unreal in his first Olympic Games. You betch you're sweet. Yes, that Scotty Scheffler is taking it home at plus 330. That, to me, seems like a little value there. The conversation on Lowry Markkinen, and this may be honestly the last time we ever mention Lowry Markkinen's name on a Locked On Warriors podcast. Highly doubtful. I'm sure something will come out between now and August 6th, but we're in under a week to the point where the decision is going to be made. Latest we've heard is that all reports are trending towards him being a Utah Jazz for the future. He wants to be a part of this rebuild. He loves the team. They clearly haven't found any good trade suitors, at least trade suitors that are willing to give up the pieces that Danny Ainge wants. So reports are saying that he will be a Utah Jazz signing after the 6th of August and making him ineligible to be traded at the trade deadline. Mike Miller comes into the equation. Played with the Memphis Grizzlies, played with the Miami Heat. Think he had a stint with the Cavs, was a great collegiate basketball player at Florida, where he may or may not have won a national championship, was in a Final Four. I know that for a fact. But Mike Miller, who's now an agent, said with Shams Charania that he believes Lowry Markkinen is going to be a Golden State Warrior next year. And Shams, obviously Mike Miller's connected. Shams on the spot was like, hey, you mind to divulge further into that? And he's like, Shams, you're not on the clock right now. You're always looking for a scoop. What do you make of this? And what do you make of the whole Lowry Markkinen sweepstakes in general? Because you were not on the show with me when the news dropped on Tuesday.
I mean, this is a pivotal point for the Golden State Warriors because if they do get Lowry Markkinen, if they go all in, then this has to be a year where they're focused on winning a championship and they believe this team can be contenders. If they don't get Lowry Markkinen, to me, the issue is the Warriors don't have a backup plan. Along the lines of different reports coming out, I just saw on Friday, there was a conversation had on the Low podcast hosted by ESPN Zach Lowe with a number of NBA insiders, where they said that the New Orleans Pelicans don't look likely to trade Brandon Ingram, who is another player a lot of Warriors fans, people around the media had been speculating could be a possible target, and there have been no reports and no conversations between the Warriors and New Orleans Pelicans. And that's something that was talked about in the podcast. They said that there has been no movement in regards to Brandon Ingram, and that even a couple of the teams and organizations that had shown interest earlier on in the summer, including the Sacramento Kings and San Antonio Spurs, had essentially bowed out and backed off, and that there really is no buzz around Brandon Ingram, and the organization isn't dead set on trading him. They're also not dead set on signing him to some massive extension, which is reportedly what Brandon Ingram would like. So this may be a year where he has to really play and prove himself and try to earn that. But it sounds like the Pelicans aren't super eager to trade him, and the Warriors haven't even been involved in those discussions. So it's like, if the Warriors don't get Lowry Markkanen, what's plan B? Is there someone else you can target to try to improve this roster? Which, to me, Brandon Ingram's like the next name of a player who you could look at possibly being a reliable secondary scorer. Not his best year that he's coming off of. Ingram averaging right around 21 points per game this last season. Still enough. And you'd hope maybe he comes into the system, he works with the Warriors, again, positive culture, those types of things could possibly elevate his play. But averaging right around 21 points per game, more than 5.5 assists, 5 boards per game, as the Pelicans reached the first round of the playoffs this past season. And then he kind of tinkered out and was terrible in the postseason. But still, a player who could bring that secondary scoring punch now doesn't look like he's on the market, or that's someone the Warriors are even considering pursuing. Like, it's not even like there's any conversations happening, which means they must be all in on market. And if that doesn't happen, like, what's plan B? There's some names that we floated out here on this program that everyone was adamantly against, like Jimmy Butler, like Zach LaVine. But like, outside of, for example, those two names, like, who else is going to be a big signing? There just isn't a lot on the market right now. Another player I want to bring up that I don't hate bringing into the Warriors, like, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but this isn't going to be the flashy name that people are looking for. And that's Cam Johnson, because the Brooklyn Nets are officially in rebuild, tank mode, whatever you want to call it, after the Bridges trade. And it would seem that a logical step, and now there have been no like rumors about the Warriors pursuing Cam Johnson. I don't know the latest about him even possibly being a trade, but you would think the Nets are sellers at this point. It would make sense for them. And you would think, or at least I would think, that he would be a player who could fit into the Warriors lineup as a 3-and-D wing type of player, hit 39% from beyond the arc, 6'8", on right about 6 attempts last season. So, I mean, the Warriors always like floor spacers. He's good at moving off the ball. Cam Johnson can cut, relocate, a pretty willing passer, unlike some of the issues, or rather shortcomings, I pointed out with Klay Thompson this past season. So, I think that could work with the Warriors offense, but again, is this going to be that big flashy name and the big flashy signing, the secondary score, the Robin to the Batman, as you've been phrasing it? Like, I just feel like there's not a lot out there. So if the Warriors don't get Markkanen, I almost go to the point of like, let's accept that this is a partial rebuild, not a total rebuild, but like, let's bank on the young players if we don't think there's a good secondary score that we can bring in who's going to be a great fit that we can believe will make this a championship team. So I'm saying, like, bringing in a above average, a good player, whatever, that's not going to raise this team to being a championship level. Like, to me, it's what's the point? If you're going to do that, like, why not just bank on the young guys stepping up and just letting them grow and develop and take on those bigger roles and just seeing what happens? What do you, your take on that if they don't?
They're looking at from a longer term perspective than just this upcoming season. I know every fan looks at the calendar, and all that matters is this upcoming season, because nothing's guaranteed after that. A GM, an owner, coaches, everyone that has their heads in this together is looking at this from a 4, 5, 2, 3 year perspective down the road, and bringing in Lowry Markkanen with a bunch of control is giving yourself one of the cornerstone pieces that you can build on in the future. But if the price isn't worth it, and if Lowry Markkanen is not looking to be traded, and those two things combine to where he is staying in Utah, then you have to look at other options. I will say this: you said looking for the Robin to the Batman. That was kind of your comparison with Lowry. At least they didn't look for an Alfred. At least they didn't look for someone that's 95 years old that's going to be sitting next to Batman. They did get younger. They really lived with players in that low 30s age group. Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, bringing in those two. Yeah, DeAnthony Melton, just bringing in 3 guys that I would imagine the average age is right around 30, a healthy age. They've gotten bigger. We've talked about that. So maybe, just maybe, the Warriors' plan B right now is just to ride with the horses they got. And are those horses good enough to win a championship? Let's run through the 10-man.
No.
Curry, Melton, Podziemski, Slow-Mo, Hield, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, Looney, Moses Moody, Trace Jackson Davis. There's 11. We'll get to Gary Payton in just a minute. But yeah, it doesn't on paper, it doesn't pop. But
No.
a lot of things don't pop on paper, and then you see them in action and they do. So you never know until the ball tips up in the air.
I will say I'm with you. Like, I'm down with them, just riding with the horses they got. I think that's how you phrased it. I just think as fans, we're going to have to temper our expectations because no, it doesn't look the flashiest on paper. To me, it's not enough on paper. I think the only possible saving grace and reason why I would say maybe there's an outside chance the Warriors could be a serious deep playoff team is if Jonathan Kuminga just has this massive breakout year. And I don't want to say total breakout because he had a very productive year last year, but like suddenly goes off and is an all-star. I think that's something that could be in his future. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen this year, but I think that's definitely plausible. So, like, maybe the outside chance that Jonathan Kuminga becomes the secondary scorer and is dropping
and it's going
on
to take
average
more than that.
24 a night. It's possible.
And it's going to take more than that.
Chance, but it's
going to take Podziemski being really good as well, and I think it's going to take Trace Jackson Davis. It's going to take Trace Jackson Davis to be. I mean, he's an X factor that no one's really talking about right now. He has to convert into one of the better defensive centers in the league if this team, and they've been good around the rim despite their lack of size in the last 5 years. You brought up the stat the other day with how efficient they've been around the rim, not letting teams get easy buckets. But Jackson Davis is really going to have to give him a big time edge on the defensive side of the ball. And then Podziemski, Kuminga, or Moody. I mean, if Moses Moody flourishes into someone that can average 16 points, 18 points per game, I'm not personally banking on it. I know you have a lot more faith in Moody than myself personally. But between Moody, Podziemski, and Kuminga, like two of them have to be, we use the word stars so much. I don't care about the word star because a lot of times that converges with the word flash, and I don't care about the flash. You could be a Chris Middleton who's not a star and still win yourself an NBA championship as the number 2 because you're just a damn good basketball player. I think Podziemski can be that. Really cerebral, IQ-based, great passer. When he penetrates, he seems to make smart plays more often than not. And if he can grow up intelligently in the next 6 months and really limit his mistakes and almost play the point guard with Steph, 2 point guards on the floor at the same time, they kind of go on and off the ball, different possessions based on what the Warriors are doing schematically. But if he can be that, and then Kuminga can be the flash, the sizzle, the pop, and knock down threes at like a 37% clip. You get him in ISO, you get him in transition. Podziemski finding Kuminga in transition with Trace Jackson Davis running the floor. That's the X factor. That's the plan B, is that these three guys right here, and maybe Moody if you throw him in the mix too, are really, really good. And we're just sleeping on them because it's youth. And youth does take time to develop. But that's the best case scenario, plan B for the Golden State Warriors. Could plan C include Gary Payton II? What is Gary Payton II's role on this team? Is he going to be playing the entire season in the Bay Area? We'll discuss on Locked On Warriors. All right, give it to me, Kylen Mills. Gary Payton II. The Warriors have added wings and guards like Lindy Waters, who knows what his role is going to be, and DeAnthony Melton and Buddy Hield. They still have Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and Brandon Podziemski, 3 players that are probably slated for more minutes. Gary Payton, meanwhile, since that the big season in 2022 where he helped him with the championship run, he's played in just 66 of the possible 164 regular season games in the last 2 years. That is significantly less than half. Because of that, Payton obviously opted into his $9 million player option for this season. Still is one of the league's best perimeter defenders, and you have him right now as a specialist. You can throw him in late in games when you need a stop. You can play him based on potential matchups. You can hope that he gets back to that 2022 form, although there wasn't a large sample size of him being great before that season. Some may call it the old flash in a pan. But, I mean, playing just 66 of 164 regular season games in the last 2 years, does seem to say that he's been playing hurt more often than not when he's been playing. So is there any chance that he has a significant, maybe a stretch of a word, but a healthy role on this year's team?
The Warriors are just so loaded in the backcourt and they've got so many numbers, they've got so many guards. I don't know what his everyday role is going to look like, but I do think it's great to have that defensive specialist, excellent perimeter defender in the arsenal. In certain matchups, he may play more. In certain matchups, he may play less. I see him being more of like a flex rotational piece, depending on what the Warriors need at any given time. Now, granted, the Warriors last year were one of the worst perimeter defending teams in the league, so I think playing him more minutes than not is going to help for sure. But with all those other names you just pointed out, I do think it's going to be tough. The big question mark is Gary Payton II going to be healthy? The point you already made was exactly what was going through my mind. In this offseason, I was actually surprised that we haven't seen more talk about Gary Payton II being traded. It made sense that he opted into that extra year and that he's coming back as a player for the player option. But I was not going to be surprised if I saw him traded or at least in discussions to be traded. And I just feel like there hasn't been a lot of that. But looking back at his career, he's played one healthy NBA season, and it was that 2021-22 campaign where they ran to the championship.
Well, he got hurt in the Memphis series, right?
And he got
Yeah.
hurt and had to miss a good portion of the playoffs, down to the championship, down to the title. What game was it that he came back? I can't remember.
It was
But
game 2 against Boston.
Was it game 2? Okay, I was going to say it wasn't game 1, but regardless, and he got hurt in that series. You go back to 1920 when he played with the Wizards, played in 29 games, and obviously during some of his and during a lot of his career, he's also playing in the G League. He was back and forth. So that's a factor for sure. But at the end of the day, his body has handled one NBA season where he was able to be healthy. 22 games in 2022-23, 44 games played this last year. So his usage is going to depend on how much he can stay healthy and how much his body can handle, because the Warriors definitely need help perimeter defending. And like I said, I think his minutes could be flexed night in, night out, depending on just the way games are going and rotations are working. But at the end of the day, he has to stay healthy. And that's my big question mark is Gary Payton II one of those guys who just, it happened once, but it may not be able to happen again, where he plays a fully healthy season. And I say fully through the regular season before he dealt with an injury in the Memphis series, thanks to a dirty play, which was not his fault, which we're not going to go down that road and even entertain that individual who made the play and broke, was it his collarbone? I think it was. But regardless, he has only played one healthy NBA season. So for GP2, health is going to be the biggest factor.
Steve Kerr has talked in the Olympics about how he only likes going 10 deep. And that was part of his reasoning for not playing Jason Tatum in the matchup against Serbia. So you look at that depth chart that we've been talking about, and it's Curry, Melton, Pods, Slow-Mo, Hield, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond. That's 8 right there that are guaranteed. Trace Jackson Davis, that's 9. You would imagine Moses Moody, that's 10. Kevon Looney for size alone, that's 11. Maybe Quentin Post, if he's on this roster, is 12. You're looking at so many players above Gary Payton, and he's going to get his load management minutes, and he's going to have a role in some way at some points of this NBA season. But how valuable of a role is that going to be? And he's got an interesting contract right now. Anthony Slater mentioned after Payton's decision to opt into the contract that his mid-sized expiring deal could be valuable in salary matching potential trades. So the flexibility of that expiring deal could be utilized in a number of different trade scenarios before the end of next season. In short, it sounds like he could be a chip come deadline. If you're looking to bring in a new player, you're just looking to unload some of your contracts, he could be one of those players that doesn't finish the season with the Warriors. But I like Gary Payton II. Loved his dad as a defender, obviously, the glove. And I like young glove too. I hope there's a bounce back season for him. It just seems like there is no hype or no talk surrounding. I mean, I think if you polled 100 Warriors fans outside of Mission Bay right now, or Mission Rock, or outside of Chase Center, and stopped 100 fans on the street and asked them what their expectation is for Gary Payton II this upcoming season, half of them would be like, oh yeah, that's right. We have Gary Payton II on this year's team. I kind of forgot. Like, is that not a fair response?
It's a fair response. Did you see me turning my camera just now, though? Because if you've seen me looking away from the screen, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's because I'm just hearing very, very quiet whining noises coming from the doorway.
Oh no, is it Benny?
Yes. Benny, our border collie lab mix, is slowly waking from his slumber and is ready for his bedtime walk. So apologies if you did hear any of that high-pitched whining. I'm hoping the mic didn't pick it up, but I had to show people why. We got a beach whale in here. But yes, it's fair. I think it's easy to get lost in the shuffle. Gary Payton II for sure. And I think that about a lot of the guards. It'll be interesting to see how Steve Kerr divvies out minutes, but Steve Kerr loves guards, so I'm sure he'll figure it out and he'll find a way.
Good stuff, Kylen.
All right. And that graphic, if you're watching, also means it's time to go. So bye-bye.
Free Moses.